Hi, let's talk about how do we know when we've pushed our child too far or we haven't pushed them enough when they have anxiety. This is such a huge question and concern for it was a concern for me. It's been a concern for me still with my grandchildren. How hard do you push kids out of their comfort zone? And when is it, good to do that? When you shouldn't do that? And so I wanted to talk to you about that today because I had that question recently. We had a pool time we have an above ground pool here at my house, and we had all of our adult children and then their children come to play in the pool. And one of my grandchildren likes the water, but he's pretty unsure about it. And we have to go through kind of a process where he first puts his feet in, and then he sets on the ladder and puts both of his legs in, and then maybe somebody can hold him in the water. And then he gets to the point where he jumps in if somebody's going to catch him. And he had a puddle jumper on so that he could float in the water because it's probably 3 or 4 feet deep. And so we were showing him that he could float there without us holding on to him. And he was really getting upset about that, like he wanted somebody to be holding on to him. And I feel like we did it right when I think about, how do you know the difference? And I'm going to talk to you about that. But I feel like we did a lot of the steps well, like doing like let's do this baby step, then this baby step. And each time he would feel confident with that, and then he could move on to the next thing. And even when they were pushing him out of his comfort zone, which needs to happen, and this is really important for you to know, we do need to push our kids into the uncomfortableness of doing things that seem too hard or seem too scary, not in a terrifying way. And there is a difference between out of your comfort zone, which is called the growth zone. I love that. Or the panic zone. So this is what I think we did well. When he was like, no, 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 don't let go of me. I'm scared of being in the water without someone holding on to me. When they took their hands off of him, they would just keep talking to him very calmly. Look, you're fine. You're floating. You can do it. Kick your feet. And his nervousness, you could tell, was a growth zone where he wasn't screaming. He wasn't in a panic. He was like, oh, I don't like it. And that's like, okay, well, we need to push through that. And when he did sometimes get overwhelmed, which he did sometimes, and then he would get really upset, then they pulled back and was like, okay, let's go back to the stairs, or let's go, talk about what's going on. Let's, whatever. Like we would take breaks and then come back to it. And so I was thinking, a lot of people probably wonder, and I remember wondering this too, how far do you push people? And I remember thinking this as a school counselor. How hard do I push kids who seem to not want to come to school? Or maybe they got to school, but then they wanted to stay in my office all day. And, I need to get them out, but they didn't want to go out. And how hard should I push somebody, or when do I let them have a break? So I thought this is a perfect topic for us to talk about, when to push and when to stop pushing. And so some of those things are when the challenge meets their stage, their emotional developmental stage. And for my grandson, who's 3, I feel like that was the perfect mix of, yes, you're nervous about like not having someone hold on to you, but it's okay. It's okay to be nervous, but we're going to let go of you just so you can see that you can do it. The same thing goes like when you're teaching a child to ride a bike. Now, some kids, can't wait to ride a bike, and they'll, go through anything that's scary in order to be able to learn to ride the bike. But he hasn't learn to ride a bike without training wheels, but I can picture that when that time comes, he's probably gonna be a little uncertain about, "Don't let go of me." And you kind of almost have to do it in a way. I remember so often, like, letting go when they don't know you've let go, and then they're doing it on their own, and then you're like, "Look, you're already doing it." Because anytime we do new things, we're uncertain about, like, "Can I do this? Is this too hard? Will I get hurt?" And we're just letting kids see that they can do it, but that does have to be done based on the developmental stage that they're at. And then again, that comfort zone, growth zone, panic zone. Like, really just get in tune with your kid. Is this just like, "Oh, this is hard and I don't like it?" Or is it like, "I'm in a panic, I'm in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response." And when kids get to that response, you're not going to reason with them. You're not going to teach them anything. You're not going to show them anything. You definitely have to stop at that point. So just be really in tune. And about 15 to 20% of kids have a more anxious personality style that they're born with. And so maybe your child is more anxious about activities and doing new things. And that's okay. We're not going to let them out of those things. They need to work through uncomfortable things. That's the secret sauce to the world. But how can you do it in steps? How can you look at it as growth? They're growing and learning in that uncomfortableness, and we're not pushing them into panic. If you're watching this video when it is released, then I have a parent workshop coming up this next Thursday, July 24th at noon Central Time. And I'm going to talk about all things anxiety, about where does it come from? What do you do? And if you come live to that workshop, you can ask questions about these very things or any other things anxiety related that you have questions about. And I had recorded this workshop, I had recorded it previously, and I was listening to it today, and I'm like, this is so good. So many people need to hear this information, and I wish I would have had it years ago. So look for a link in the description or the show notes, or probably anywhere on social media or my website, and you'll be able to sign up for that workshop. And I just want to see you there, because talking about anxiety and getting answers for your child's anxiety is so important. Now, using rewards is always something you can use when you're trying to get your children to have certain behaviors. And I think rewards can be used in these situations. Of course, you're not going to use them too much, because they shouldn't be rewarded constantly for just doing everyday activities that make them a little bit uncomfortable. But if they have really had trouble doing something like going to school, and they start taking those steps in and going to school and spending more and more time there, then, having a reward after a few days, don't make the reward a long time away, because they'll lose track and it won't be as enticing. But, and make them small. You don't have to spend a ton of money. And I would ask them what they want and tell them, I want these. Let's talk about what the rewards could be. And I don't want to spend money on them. So what kinds of things? Like, we could play games. We could have a dance party. I can take you for something small, or maybe just like going to the park, which would be free. But, maybe it's a small cone, or, something that doesn't cost as much, or something, that's not too unhealthy too many times. And just talk to them about how they are accomplishing things, not comparing them to other kids or other times or whatever, but just like look at what you've done here. You made it through this day at school. You went to the new club and you stayed there the whole time. You got in the pool and stayed in all day and even jumped off a couple times. And a couple times you were floating without anyone holding on to you. Those are things that you can just praise them for. Hey, you made it. You did it. You're strong enough to handle things that are uncomfortable. In some anxiety-producing situations, you can do things to stimulate the vagus nerve. Because remember, there was a podcast, and I'll have to try to link it, about how you calm your vagus nerve because that also calms your mind and your body. And so there are things that you could do to calm your vagus nerve, like chewing gum, singing or humming, breathing slowly, and you could help them through a breathing exercise. Eating a piece of dark chocolate. I love this one because I love dark chocolate. Now, some people don't like it because it's not as sweet, and there's probably something in the dark chocolate, like the bitterness or, so it's not so sweet that probably helps the vagus nerve more than just regular chocolate. And gargling water, which I think is interesting. I sometimes wonder if I don't think you gargle water, but I remember when there was the trick about if you had the hiccups, you would just drink water without breathe like, you would hold your breath and you would just drink water until you couldn't you had to take a breath, and that would help your hiccups go away, and sometimes it did. And I wonder if that was similar to this gargling water. I don't know. Also, crossing the midline, and this is something I don't think about very often, but doing things where you have to cross the middle of your body. So, like having your child march and having them reach across and touching their opposite knee, or doing windmills, if you remember those in PE where you swing your arms around across like both of your arms are windmills, or doing things that are heavy, pulling a wagon or lifting heavy things. All of these kind of get you out of that part of your brain that tends to go towards panic or anxiety. And then if you do some of those things to calm the nervous system and then try the anxiety producing activity, that could be helpful because they're at a calmer state. And so then they feel like their mind is more online to problem solve and deal with whatever it is that they are anxious about. And then I think it would be great to reflect on it afterwards. So just asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think you did? How did it feel? What was something that helped you get through it? What's something that you thought about to help you get through it? What is something that you ended up enjoying? Like once you were in the pool and you jumped around and, what was fun about it? Or once you went to school, who did you see? Or what class was fun? Or if they go to an activity that they've been avoiding, what was fun about the activity or who did you meet there? So that way that kind of brings in the joy of why we want to do things that make us uncomfortable. So I hope this was helpful. Sign up for my parent workshop. I'm going to do a workshop a month. So if you happen to miss the one that I'm talking about in this episode, just keep looking for what the next one is. I'm going to do different topics. I mean, they're all going to be anxiety related, but like different parts of anxiety. I think next month I'm going to do like a master class on seven steps to help your child with anxiety. And I'm just going to keep like trying to find different things to click with you. So I'm so glad that you listened all the way through today and you're still here. And I appreciate you so much. And make sure that if you're watching YouTube, you subscribe. If you're not watching YouTube and you're listening to this, go over to YouTube and subscribe. It might be fun. I know I follow people on YouTube and listen to their podcast. And so depending on where I am, if I can watch the video, I do. If I can't watch the video, I listen to the podcast. But the subscribes and watches really help people who are on YouTube. So that would be amazing if you did that. And I'll talk to you soon.